Greetings to all and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. Today's episode is about balance. Every good religion, spiritual path, or philosophy should have something meaningful to say about how to find balance in our lives. So what does the Law of One have to say about how to find balance in our work and family and spiritual lives? And how can we regain our balance when hit every day with so many catalysts that push or pull us off center? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found on the list of study groups at the L&L Research Wedge page shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook page, and we do meet twice a week on Zoom. Tuesdays, 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific time, Saturdays, 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out updates once a week to let you know what we're talking about that week, as well as the Zoom links. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty, Austin Bridges, Gary Bean, and Trisha Bean of the L&L Research Channeling team. Just go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button to get notifications when we upload new episodes, and contact us at seattlelawofone@gmail.com if you would like to join any of our Q&A sessions. Otherwise, as mentioned, today's episode is about balance. Let's meet today's panelists. Panelists, why don't you go ahead, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Jonathan.
Hey, how's it going? My name is Dr. Jonathan Locust. Jonathan, Dr. J, whatever is fine. And I'm calling from Tampa, Florida, and I am so happy to be here.
We are so happy to have you here, Dr. J. Thank you. Always a pleasure, always an honor. Chloe?
Hi, everyone. My name is Chloe. I'm calling in from Colorado Springs, Colorado.
So wonderful to have you here, Chloe. Thank you. And Diane?
Hi, I'm Diane, and I'm calling in from Stoughton, Massachusetts, just southwest of Boston.
So nice to have you all here. Did want to remind our viewers that none of us here are experts on the Law of One, nor have any of us mastered balance in our own personal lives. We are all normal people like you, just hanging out and sharing our thoughts and opinions on how best to apply as best we can what we learned about the Law of One. Anything we say could be wrong. You're welcome to disagree with anything or everything that any of us say. If you are already familiar with the Law of One and the entities known as Ra and Quo, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on balancing catalyst and chaos. Otherwise, for those who are not familiar with the Law of One, you can think of the Law of One as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. Everything we read, everything we say from here on could be considered some variation of that statement. It's worth noting that everything we read today came to us through the process of channeling. Channeling is a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, inner planes entities, etc. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through. And in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been done by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, subconscious or unconscious, as if asleep, meaning they are not aware of what is being said. It is like they are talking in their sleep. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they are only somewhat aware of what is being said, like maybe speaking half in your sleep. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting in the mid-1980s up to present day. So who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latwi at 5th density, and Hatan at 4th density. A social memory complex is a planetary consciousness. It is as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. Densities you can think of as levels of consciousness or levels of reality. Imagine that the elements of earth, air, fire, and water had some primitive form of consciousness. Whatever that is, we call that first density. You can think of second density as the density, the level of consciousness of plants and animals, clearly a quantum leap above the consciousness of inanimate matter like water and air. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a quantum leap above the level of consciousness of other animals or plants. You can think of fourth density as the density where social memory complexes happen. So it would be the consciousness of all of humanity merged into one single planetary consciousness. Clearly a quantum leap above third density. You can think of fifth density as whatever would be equivalent quantum leap above fourth density. And you can think of sixth density as whatever would be a comparable quantum leap above that. And it just seems to go on forever and ever. So there is a whole nother podcast episode on densities. Feel free to check it out. For now, suffice it to say, Quo would appear to be a group entity made up of three planetary consciousnesses, Ra at sixth density, Latwii at fifth density, and Hatan at fourth density. First contact was made by the L&L research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984, and they have been channeled every month since then up to the present day by the L&L research channeling team. You can find transcripts of those channeling sessions at the L&L Conscious Channeling Library. So let us take a look at some passages related to how to balance catalyst and chaos. We are going to look at a long passage that's actually going to take up 2 slides. But on March 24th, 1996, Quo is recorded as saying, "When one is very, very close to an elephant, it is possible only to see a portion of dark, leathery skin. If one were able to pull oneself up and back, as if taken into the atmosphere by a helicopter, one could move a very few feet back and see not a patch of skin, but an animal recognizable as an elephant. And this is a truth which does not contradict or deny the first truth, but adds to it and clarifies it. Now, if one continued moving up and back from this elephant, one would see the elephant become a small dot surrounded by the myriad truths and dwelling places of your peoples. And this truth, not contradicting or denying the elephant, yet adds the context within which that animal abides. Now, if one continued pulling away from this scene, one eventually would see the planet upon which dwell that elephant, spinning in space. Sorry, got to move my screen. With the precision of clockwork. And again, this would be a setting of the elephant in its larger context. If one continued to pull away, one would eventually see empty space and stars, and this too would be the greater truth. When one seeks to balance the self, a great deal of necessary work is a learning of and a claiming of the larger point of view, not a specifically larger or a specific point of view, but rather a point of view which has pulled back from the previous view. In this, as in all things a spiritual seeker does, truth is relative. Progress is relative, and to judge the self's balance by gazing at another is only to confuse the processes of spiritual evolution. For each entity truly has an unique path, and on that path is where that seeker is. Each seeker must needs wrestle continuously with those angels which show the face of the Creator to the seeking self. And I know I just said this like 5 minutes ago, but I will remind you again, everything that we just read came to us through the process of channeling. So the person who was saying these words was in a very deep meditative state and really didn't know what they were saying beyond like maybe one sentence in the beginning of the next. So to have such this breadth of communication coming through supposedly in telepathic contact, it's really beautiful and so much to unpack here. I just think the perspective is really important, and what they said about how when you pull back, you're not denying the reality of what you saw in a closer up perspective. You're just seeing it in a wider context. And I think that's a really important thing to understand, especially when we're trying to balance our point of view with somebody who's got a different point of view. Dr. J, any thoughts on anything from this passage?
Yeah, kind of. There's two things that the first one I'll just say, um, even when they talk about when they mention that each path is unique, and by looking at somebody else, that's not an indicator of your progress. And I know that's something that I've personally just had to balance, especially with being in education and teaching, but being an administrator where you kind of consistently progress in groups with grades, and to be able to kind of just back up and pull back to be able to say, no matter how somebody else's situation or things may be looking, that my path is unique, and to make sure that I'm on a path of continuously pulling back as far as perspective. The second part is, like you said, it is really beautiful because it allows and kind of shows a process in which you can actually be able to pull back, not only kind of, I would say, maybe in longer periods of time, but even like in that moment. And it makes me think about, and I'll kind of tell a story that I think kind of demonstrates that, but I'll do it quick so I don't get the sign to hurry up and be quiet. Uh, I'm in a situation where I start a new position, and I'm in a vice president role at Winona State University. And within a few months of being in that role, I'm able to hire somebody. And as I'm doing that, essentially one of the unions there did not necessarily like who I hired. And because of that, there was a grievance, which is essentially a lawsuit, where, and you go through this process, which is I went through this process for like six months. It's a very strenuous process. You're submitting paperwork, you're interviewing, you're getting interviewed by people, by attorneys. It's not a very, very good process. And one of the things that made it very, very difficult as I was going to these meetings were there were things that were said about me in the process that just were not true, which honestly just pissed me off. So we're in one meeting to where there's talking that is happening, and I'm just feeling myself just getting madder and madder and madder and madder upset because what they're saying is just not true. And that morning I had read the law of one that morning. It had said you can progress if you can just find the love in the moment. And I'm in this meeting like, well, where's the love in the moment? They're lying on me. So I'm sitting here trying to like find it, and then something goes, send them love. And I'm like, well, they don't deserve love. And I'm like, nah, I can't be that person. So I'll start actually visualizing sending myself love to the people who are actually saying these things that are not true. And as my feelings start to, I'm no longer angry, I'm starting to feel that love, but then I'm starting to become empathetic to the position. And as I'm sending love, that I'm starting to basically getting a better understanding and appreciation of why all of these things are happening. Not that I agree with it, but from their perspective, there was things that are happening that I saw kind of pulling out that, okay, I don't agree with that, but I can see why you all would do this and why you all would say that. And as these things happen, not only did that pulling backwards perspective happen, but it allowed an inroad to a relationship. Not only a relationship to the people that were doing that, but a relationship to that union, to where a few years later I was actually presenting to a state conference. So I think about the importance of not only being able to find the love in the moment, but when you do that, I really do believe that as these energies are increasing, you can not only have a larger and wider perspective of not only yourself, but an appreciation of the perspective of the other catalytic kind of experience that you're going through at that time.
For sure. Wow, what a beautiful, powerful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And what a powerful transformation inside. And I think, so often we think that you have to start with your heart being in love and let that work your way up to expressing it. But you kind of went the other way around. You started by sending them love. And once you started doing that, then it kind of sunk down inside until you actually like really felt it in your heart. And what a great lesson and teaching for everybody. Chloe, any thoughts? Anything to add?
Absolutely. I wanted to expand on that just a little bit because I was going to talk about balancing emotions and perspective being helpful with that.
You'll have time.
So
We can come back to it.
I'm a like level one Reiki practitioner, and we learn that you can send Reiki, which is like love energy or divine energy. You can send it to situations. And if you send that to the situation, it can actually help to heal it. And I've never put that into practice before, but I just felt like that's kind of what Jonathan did, um, sending that love energy to the situation and just gaining clarity. I have struggled with this myself, but I find that emotions can be blinding. Like intense emotions can literally make you not be able to see the truth, or just completely a skewed perspective from perhaps the other person. And I find the way I balance that now is just taking as much time as I can to go within and try to gain that perspective and gain sort of like my footing again and be balanced again before I have that reaction. And I feel a lot of people struggle with this because they feel the intensity and they're like, I need to act right now. But you don't. You don't need to act right then and there. So, yeah, just thought the gaining the perspective is so helpful.
Yeah, the perspective in time, like you just said, I think is super important. Appreciate that. Diane, anything to add?
My first thought when we started talking was the importance of balancing physically and spiritually. But as you're talking, I've got to jump right in with you, Dr. J, and also with you, Chloe. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I had a situation that rocked my world where I was required, or the world kept putting me into a situation where I would be with the same people, but there were two of these people that I think it felt like they were always dealing from hate with each other. And when we were in a group, I was constantly being put in the middle where each one wanted me to hate the other or I'm wrong. And and I was always trying to be kumbaya and be sweet, and I didn't know how to handle it. And what ended up happening after years of having to do this several times a year, I came home one time and I actually said hateful things to someone in a conversation and stopped and said, I don't even feel that way. That's not me. That's not how I talk. That's how one of these people speaks. And I realized I brought it home with me. I could no longer deflect it. So that's that. So the next time I had to go up to that meeting, I was talking with friends that I would meet routinely to meditate with and to study with. And I spoke what I just spoke. And they help me. I have to go up to this meeting. What do I do? And what was spoken was one, that you're always telling us, look for the good before you do anything else. Look for the good. Can you find any good? Well, at the moment I couldn't. He said, well, what that one person, can you find any good there? Is there anything you can say positive about that one person? And I said, she has pretty hair. Go with that. Yeah. And my head,
Better than nothing. Yeah.
that's all I had. But the
She's a
conversation,
bitch, but she's got nice hair.
yes. And so they said, well, let's go with that. Hold on to that. And now can you just think of this meeting and throw light at it? What will it be like when they walk in? And I was speaking out loud, it's almost this little, almost like a hypnotic thing. And they were telling me, say, okay, I'm walking in. I see, there they are. I said, okay, look at this person. What do you feel? Ah, look at how pretty her hair is. Oh, it is very pretty. Focus on that. And now throw light in that situation. Okay, how do you want it to turn out? I spoke my words. All right, let's all come back. And that was the end of it. I went up to that meeting. It was beautiful. And through all the meeting, anytime that awful things would come out of her mouth, I could look at her and go, my God, you have beautiful hair. And I never got angry. I was able to stay in balance. It didn't change what went on, except for me. I had no anger. I was in balance, and I found my balance lightened the whole time we had to work together. So, wow, that
What a
is
great story.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Whatever it takes, I think, to find the love in the moment would be a good takeaway lesson. I think in our previous podcast episode on true love, one of our panelists suggested looking at the worst person you can think of and just remembering that at one time they were a little child, and that person probably has a mother who loved them, still loves them, and maybe to look at that person with that approach. And not everybody can do that, but if it works, that would be another thing. We've talked a little bit about open hearts, and I had a passage that I wanted to look at on that subject. Before we do that, panelists, did anybody have anything else they wanted to add to this passage before we move on? Nice. So this is a considerably shorter passage from September 29th, 2002. And Quo said, "If you are loving, you are in balance. You can be upside down or sideways or flat on your back in the illusion. But if your heart is open, we ask you to be utterly pleased and satisfied and to move on into the moment to mine some of the wonderful, spontaneously available breath and spirit and je ne sais quoi of that particular moment, that intersection of space-time and time-space in which this perfect moment became possible." This is the first time I can remember Quo speaking French. I'm sure it's happened somewhere else, but it always makes me laugh thinking, wow, I wonder what it would have been like to be there and hear Carla speaking French through Quo. Wonder how it sounded to a French person. Be hilarious if you could speak some language that she didn't even know. That would be a whole nother deal. Otherwise, I love this passage because it always gives me the visual of me like tumbling through the dryer, being upside down and sideways and flat on my back, but still somehow being able to keep my heart open. That would certainly be the goal and the objective, and it's something I'm trying to do every day. Chloe, did you have any thoughts on anything from this passage?
Yeah, it just reminds me of that quote, just finding love in the moment and the power of being in the present moment. And I think that kind of ties into this. Just there's a lot of power there, there's a lot of love there, and you don't really need to be seeking anything else except for love in each passing moment.
Yeah. Like everything else, easier said than done, right?
Oh yeah, definitely easier said than done, but we're all doing our best.
Yeah, and that's probably what makes the biggest difference, right? The intention that you're trying. You're trying to open your heart. You're trying to find love in the moment. Diane, anything to add?
Being in the moment is something we can practice constantly. I think being in the moment and in a loving state in the moment is something that is valuable to practice constantly, not just when we're finding we're out of balance. Take a walk. If the weather is bad, maybe just breathe, go outside, take a deep breath, live in gratitude, find just one thing to say thank you. It can be a ray of sunshine. It can be a shadow that is pretty, you don't know. But it's kind of like a mind muscle. We're practicing gratitude. We're practicing observing something beautiful right now. And then you can carry that on. Don't wait till you're in trouble. Do it routinely.
Yeah, I appreciate your adding that because I hadn't really thought of that, and I don't think I really have any passages specifically about that. But Quo has spoken so many times about the importance of giving praise and thanksgiving and just that attitude of gratitude, like you said, and everything. Super important and finding that balance. Dr. John, anything to add?
Yeah. I really appreciated what both Chloe and Diane both said, and like this is it's like super relevant. Just like I think about just last Monday, there was something that I had applied for that I was really like I was expecting to get in, and I got an email on Monday that I did not end up getting it, and as I'm like upset. I'm kind of sitting there and kind of just thinking about not only the love in the moment, but what's the lesson. And then I'm also ended up thinking about, and Jonathan, you will remember when we did the Angels podcast with that quote that these angelic beings are almost just sitting around our houses, on our couches, on these different places, just waiting to be able to just come for help. And I thought about that kind of in that moment of really being upset and really sad that I didn't get what I had applied for. And then as I started to do that, I really understood and the lesson that there was a particular person that I met in that process that was, I would say, a very spiritually oriented person. So I'm like, okay, well, let me maybe reach out to this person. Finds out this person is not only a seeker, but also a Law of One reader.
Wow.
I would have never thought. And it really opened up something, not only a new perspective for myself, but even a new perspective for Kansi Rise that wasn't necessarily there, but was what was now present. So I just shared that as again a real life example from last week of being able to go through something that was difficult of hearing news, but looking at that lesson and that love in the moment, you will find that you will end up finding that balance piece to it.
Wow. Another great lesson, another great teaching. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for reminding me of the visual of the angels sitting up on the windowsills and curtain rods. It always brings a smile to my face. And I believe Diane was on the panel for that episode too, if I remember right.
And I'll say, and I really do that. Like in that moment, I'm like, all right, y'all got to come in here. Y'all come in.
Yeah.
I need y'all to pile in. I need help.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, that's great. Thank you. Really enjoying the conversation, and if anybody has anything to add, then please let me know. Otherwise, yeah, I think I'm just going to go ahead and keep on moving. I did have another message. Go ahead, Diane.
I just want to say, yes, Jonathan, that passage when I was on that panel with you, that stuck with me so strongly that every morning I have a routine. I will come in and I will pray and I have prayers, and then I will do my healing prayers for people who have asked for healings. And it makes me feel very good. But before I even begin, I walk into the room where I'm going to go and say, everybody ready? Glad to see you. I know you're all here. This is wonderful. Let's go. We're praying and we're healing. Come on, guys. It has become a routine since that podcast.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah, and I know you have that regular morning routine already long established. So that's a great podcast episode. If anybody's interested, it was called Angels and Archangels, and go to our YouTube channel. I can find it there. And yeah, it was a delightful conversation and a lot of great stories from Diane and Dr. John, indeed. Anybody else have anything they wanted to add before we move on to another passage? Sounds good. This one is about humor. On September 17th, 1987, this is from Latwii, who is one of the three social memory complexes that make up the group entity of Quo. Latwii said, "We wish to speak about that which is so often removed from the point of view of spiritual seekers, and that is the sense of humor, the sense of proportion, and the light touch. It would seem that when a seeker tackles the great questions of truth and life and being, every effort must be focused and there is no time for frivolity. Yet the greatest lessons are those learned by balanced souls, and usually the balance of an incarnated soul is the product of a generous sprinkling of the small vices, excesses, and overages of your earth. This makes each seeker aware of its own imperfection and allows the seeker to seek the cosmic humor of living in physical vehicles made of clay. This is one of my favorite passages. They have spoken so many times about the importance of humor and spiritual growth, something you don't usually hear from organized religions or spiritual paths or philosophies that I've seen before. So I really love it here. And the generous sprinkling of the small vices always makes me laugh, because today I am drinking water. But yes, sometimes I've been known to sip tequila during some of these podcasts, because that's just my favorite small vice that I enjoy and helps me get through the turbulent times of extremely late third density Earth and early fourth density Earth, one could say. Diane, any thoughts, passages on here? You have any small vices of your own that you would like to confess to?
All of them. If I've got them. I'm doing a little of everything, trying it all up.
Nice.
And I might not come back again, I may as well. But I do laugh at myself, and I have found that since I've been able to learn to laugh at myself, and I laugh, literally will laugh out loud when I catch myself being, well, like we all can be in our words and our thoughts. But I do think that laughing at oneself is good, because you get it. Oh, that was not, don't beat yourself up. Oh, that didn't work. That was not the best way to approach that. But I also find that to bring myself back, for me, I will sing little ditties like "Keep it in the middle of the road, honey, just keep it in the middle of the road." Something like that. Little song passages will come into my mind when I need to reframe. And it's a lighter way of handling things when you realize, just laugh at yourself. You're
Yeah.
just not that important. You're just not, no reason to be that serious.
It's nice that you've added music to it. I know Quo has often said, just picture yourself being in a sitcom or being in a cartoon and just add a caption to it. But you've kind of added a musical to it, which is an extra special thing for sure. Today, these days, really does seem like a reality show. It is definitely a trippy living experience. Dr. J, anything to add?
Yeah. I would say as far in regards to the sense of humor piece, I've always just really just enjoyed just laughing, just being able to have fun. But I even think about like some of the like even like so I have two children, and a lot of times like there are my son is turning 10 and my daughter's turning 3. So a lot of times my emotional fluctuations are caused by my children. And I've been able to kind of just and I think it was Cole who mentioned this in one of them about like they asked about parenting, and they mentioned that the children are just the creator. They're the creator too. And a lot of times when I've been in spaces to where they've been either doing something that I asked them not to do or is making me mad, and then I look at them as the creator, it does kind of become humorous, right? Because it's like, okay, they're obviously not trying to piss me off. They're obviously don't think writing on the wall is wrong. All of these different things, when you start to kind of pull out, it becomes humorous. So I really have found that to be a area or sense that I've tried to kind of lean into in regards to family life and balance. And then the second piece, I would say that really had the second piece allowed me to kind of give grace to myself, to be able to know like, okay, like even you can be spiritual, but still be able to have a little bit tequila. I like anejo, so we'll be having that when I come to Washington, Jonathan. Or even
I will remember that.
but to be able to know that it's okay. Like you can maybe meditate and you can have a drink. Like, and this just, and for me, it's even more difficult, as I shared before, coming from a structured Pentecostal perspective kind of background. So even as I kind of move through these different kind of experiences that I've kind of had with my parents and things like that, it's become a way for me to be able to see the oneness in myself, the logos in myself, by knowing it's okay for me to be able to want these things, and it's not wrong for me to be able to want these things. So that second paragraph really, I would say, provided grace for myself, especially as I moved from a more religious perspective to a more universal spiritual perspective.
Nice. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about the Law of One. They are extremely not dogmatic. They really don't say you need to be vegan or vegetarian. They don't really say you should follow any particular diet. They don't necessarily recommend alcohol or psychedelic drugs or anything in particular like that. They say there's nothing you can experience with psychedelic drugs that you couldn't experience yourself. But they don't necessarily condemn it, and they don't say that's like a bad thing. They recognize that every spiritual journey is unique, and that what works for some people doesn't necessarily work for other people, and vice versa as well. So, and I would encourage our viewers, especially, if you feel like you need to medicate yourself in whatever way to get through these really difficult times, it is kind of literally the end of the world that we are living through. You're not imagining it. You are literally living through the end of the world. So having a little bit of alcohol or smoking a cigarette, I think you really shouldn't feel too bad about it. You really shouldn't beat yourself up about it. Just whatever helps you open your heart and love, whatever helps you to be of service to others in the best way possible, in my humble opinion, is probably the most important thing, and the rest is details. Chloe, anything to add?
Yeah, I have two things. I guess I'll start by talking about the vices real quick, and then I'll get into the usefulness, the utility of humor. So yeah, for me, vices are things like, I really like cannabis. I really like
Me too.
psychedelics, although I'm very sporadic about it. Boy, do I love to go to raves and dance all night long and just feel like one with the cosmic dance, like just feel so good. I don't even need substances to feel like that when I'm dancing. Um, I feel a lot of people that I've met in my community have told me that psychedelics, particularly mushrooms, have been the first step on their awakening, the first step on there is more. Like, and so I really want to spread that love and that joy. So I tend to I give it away for free. Like, I make mushroom chocolates and I give it away to people just so they can have that experience if they want it. Yeah, so just, I think the fact that Bo and Ra are kind of, they don't condemn the uses of these things. They accept that humans are kind of, it's rough on Earth, and wherever we can find joy and relief, as long as we're not hurting ourselves or others, I think there's a lot to
Sure.
be said for that. And
Yeah, I
then,
appreciate your saying that. I didn't know you were in the rave scene. That is super cool. That is something I, have never partaken in, but heard a lot of great things about it.
you got quite a scene there in Seattle if you ever want to.
Yeah, yeah.
I,
I'm a
I
little
would
bit too old
say
to that. I haven't been to any clubs
you
or
are
even
definitely
rock
not too
concerts.
old for that. I have seen some 60-year-olds having the time of their life, and everyone's so happy about it, just to see them being so authentically themselves. I find it really inspires other people to just see someone enjoying life, not caring about details like, how old am I, or do I look like I fit in here? You know what I mean?
Well said.
Um,
I stand corrected.
I think as far as the humor goes, and I'll be quick about this, just having a sense of humor, for me, it's been really important. Like, I don't think if I didn't have the ability to make myself laugh and to just find humor in situations, I think it would have been a lot easier for me to just drown in sorrow and grief throughout my life. And yeah, I just find being able to laugh and find those little pieces of joy is really important for most people's journeys.
For sure. Yeah, and it's really great to know that people are able to find humor in any number of different outlets. And yeah, I know quite a few people who have done mushrooms. I've done mushrooms more than a few times myself and have found many of the same benefits that you have. And I'm a regular fan of the cannabis plant as well, and has found that it's just helped me. It's become part of my spiritual walk too. So did want to encourage any of our viewers who partake in any of those substances to know that you are in good company here. And also gratifying to know that so many people are having spiritual awakenings that have nothing to do with the law of one. They're finding it in their own way in other places. So it's a beautiful, encouraging thing to see, and that's something we could use some more of these days for sure. I think I was ready to move on to an entirely different topic. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to say about this before we move on?
If you are concerned about making errors and can't laugh at yourself, think about this. Look at YouTube's. They have whole programs on bloopers, more stuff on the bloopers on TV where people can enjoy themselves. That's all you did. You made a blooper. So laugh at it. You can make a whole podcast on your bloopers.
Indeed. Yeah, and that reminds me, we did indeed have a podcast episode on laughter and the law of one. It was episode 19, and we took a look at quite a few passages where they talked about, again, the importance of humor on the spiritual path. So if that resonates with you at all, check it out. We had a great time. Otherwise, I would like to take a look at balancing work, family, and spiritual life. On April 14th, 2021, Quo said, and this passage has been edited for brevity, while it may seem that these tasks claim the energy and attention, and they're just talking about all the different tasks that we have to do in our daily lives, while it may seem that these tasks claim the energy and attention, and indeed, we can confirm that energy is needed and directed to the completion of these tasks, there is much within the self's domain that remains unclaimed, shall we say. Or perhaps it is better to say that the self, even when conducting these duties, may claim more of the self's attention and awareness, such that there is not a sapping of this attention and energy, but rather that the self holds the attention such that the self approaches each task with mindfulness. Each task then can become a conscious undertaking wherein the spiritual principles, as you would see them, are applied, wherein a spaciousness is sustained so that the self seeks to penetrate the illusory construct of the circumstances of the moment in order to see what is really there, which, as we have said once or twice before, is the one infinite creator. And given your busy schedules, it may indeed be quite difficult and problematic to harness that attention and consciousness, which is why we recommend ad infinitum to you through these channels the necessity of daily meditation. This is a recipe given to you as a planetary peoples in particular because of your busyness. It is quite necessary to balance this with a disciplined program wherein the self trains the self to collect and hold the attention, to bring the faculties of will and faith into the conscious direction of the self, that the self may not only wield them, but strengthen them, and not be enslaved to the circumstances and the needs of the day. It is hard work, my friends. We acknowledge this. It is not easy, and the program alone of meditating daily, of squeezing into one's schedule, can be perceived as an uphill struggle. But if you can make time, and if you can remain faithful to this practice, you can, we assure you, learn to reclaim your attention and your consciousness, even from identification with the contents of consciousness, such that you can move through your days, whatever they may contain, and make a spiritual practice of your life. Beautiful passage here, and so much to unpack. I'm looking forward to hearing everybody's perspectives on this. I think the part that caught my attention most was on the first paragraph, that first part that I highlighted in blue or violet, where they said, "There is much within the self's domain that remains unclaimed," reminding us that no matter how many hours of our days we spend on task, even 5 minutes can be enough time if you are able to set up a good meditation routine. And that's the other thing that they're talking about. You can do a lot in 5 minutes. You can do a lot in 5 minutes of meditation to get to that place where you can find that balance. Or, as they were suggesting here, even if you're not meditating, if you approach any of these tasks with that consciousness of applying, looking for love in every moment and looking for the creator in the face of everyone you're working with, or just doing whatever you're doing with an open heart, that is another great way to find that balance of work life and family life and spiritual life. Dr. J, any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, that part too stuck out to me is there is much within the self's domain that remains unclaimed. And so I've gotten to the as you go through your spiritual process, I honestly haven't got to the point to where it's in my routine now to get up and meditate. It's just become like what I do. The thing where the second part about being able to approach certain tasks and things to then be able to include those spiritualities and expansions of consciousness throughout the day. And this became really apparent to me when I was in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and I spent time with indigenous people, the Shetty Shakoween, and just to see how they were able to not only live their lives, but incorporate spirituality into a lot of just the tasks they were doing. And it was such a lesson to me to then be able to say, okay, how can I insert these processes in my life? Like, I do not, and my wife knows this, but I do them now. I do not like doing dishes. I've never liked doing dishes. But when I do them now, I do them with the gratefulness that me and my family had a meal to eat. We ate something together. We have food that we can actually go out and purchase. So then even when I'm to the point of when I'm doing dishes, there's a gratefulness of experience that actually comes to that. And that's what I've been able to realize, that even these tasks that would be considered menial are ways in which we can expand consciousness. Now, even like I'm cutting my grass now, there was a discount on a discount during Black Friday. So even as I'm cutting the grass, sometimes when I don't want to, I think about then, is that a way for me to become closer with the creator? And all of these different aspects of things that I've had in my previous life of me having a disconnect with nature. So I'm exploring that too while cutting the grass, while planting things, to be able to see how we expand our consciousness. So those are the points that I wanted to just quickly make.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. And just like your other story about sending love to that person that you were having a really hard time with at the moment, it seems like this is just kind of another example of that. It's another way of doing that. You're doing dishes, something you really don't enjoy, but you're looking for the love in the moment, and you're finding it in that whole, this is part of that larger experience that you had of that loving time with your family. And yeah, it was such a powerful teaching for everyone. Thank you so much. Chloe, anything to add?
Yes, and sorry if you guys hear my cat. She meows for attention. Um, all right, well, I would like to offer an alternative perspective. I know Jonathan mentioned how he has established that regular meditation practice. I'm on the other end of the spectrum where I am struggling to really establish it. And, I just think it might be relatable for people to hear about the other end of the spectrum too, where, I come home from work, I got up early, I worked all day, I walk home, and I'm tired and I want to do things that in my brain feel good more immediately. So like uh hanging out with my family, or playing video games, or just watching TV so I don't have to use my brain. And you know sometimes I'll have like I need dark, quiet time. So I'll like turn off the light, I'll lay in bed, I'll just be there. And it doesn't feel meditative. Sometimes I fall asleep, but I find that it's really good for just getting my energy back to a good place. And I think I would like to put more effort into actually sitting down and meditating because I used to be pretty regular about it, but I also used to have someone who would do it with me and they would very much hold me accountable. Like, yeah, we're gonna do it now. Are you ready? Let's start. And I'm like, not really, but yeah, I'll start because we're doing it together. And
Nice.
yeah, just most people have trouble balancing that. Where
For
where do I
sure.
find
And
time to
For sure, and I appreciate your adding that to the conversation because I'm sure there are many, many people, including many who are watching this video, who, for very similar reasons to you, just haven't really been able to set up a regular meditation practice. And not to do another shameful promotion, but we did have another podcast episode on the subject of meditation. It was episode 7. It was fairly early in the game, and it was a great panel. And we did talk a lot about how to, there's lots of different forms of meditation and how to try different ones and find one that works for you. So if you are one of those
that's really
folks, I would
cool.
encourage you to check it out. Yeah.
I would love to check it out. I didn't realize, that that episode existed. So, not as much shameless promotion as like just making people aware.
That's my approach to it. Yeah. But I appreciate your sharing that because even in all those times that you were saying, just the dark time and the quiet time to yourself, or the time with the family, or the time that you're listening to music, that all could fulfill the same purpose of meditation if you just try to be open your heart. Try to open your heart to channel creator's love as you're doing any of those things. And that's all I do in meditation. When I meditation and I'm oming and all that stuff, I'm really mainly just trying to open my heart, and I'm just trying to be in a place of love and forgiveness for all and to let that pass through me. So for what it's worth, can I add that? Diane,
Thank you.
anything to add?
Yes, Chloe, I too love that quiet. I need right now to just be quiet. I turn the lights out. I don't even want to listen to music, but I have gotten into the habit of saying out loud sometimes, I'm going to be quiet now. If anybody up there, or my higher self, has something they would like to impart to me, now's the time to do it. And then I just get quiet. But, and Jonathan, oh my God, do I relate to your story? I hate housework, and I can't afford a maid, and I don't like strangers cleaning my stuff. So how I handle it is when I have to do this, I will tell myself, and I might say it over and over again, Jesus might just send somebody to my house today, so I may as well clean it and make it look good. And that's how I get through that. But I will say this about all of these things. I don't feel that it is necessary, if one is not drawn to it, to sit down and say, okay, this is how I'm going to meditate. I'm going to meditate for a half hour. This is what I'm going to do. That becomes a chore, and meditation is, I don't know, doesn't need to be a chore. But there is something I locked on to many, many years ago that is wonderful. And again, it's a mind muscle development thing that it only takes a few minutes. Sometimes you can do it in 30 seconds. I will envision myself, just because I feel like it, in a shower of light. And I know this is divine light, and that is it. And I will envision myself sucking that light and feeling it, just feeling it come in. And that was how it began. So then what ended up being added to that is, because I do that at least once a day, and sometimes every day, many times a day, when I find myself in a situation that is just, I don't react. I can now stop reacting for a second. All I give myself is 30 seconds, and I bring the light. I feel it come in. 30 seconds later, I now will go and approach the problem, and darn, that problem is not a problem anymore.
Nice.
And then, so that's my meditation, and it's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
What a beautiful story. Yeah. As has been said many times, anything can be a meditation. Going for a walk can be a form of meditation. Dancing can be a form of meditation. Doing the dishes can be a form of meditation. It's really just a matter of the intention you put into it. Anybody else have any thoughts on meditation or finding time for spiritual practice in this passage want to add before we look at one other passage?
I just want to add one quick thing, that, yeah, meditation isn't a chore. I've just had this really strong message in my head that it's a gift. Like, it's a gift of consciousness and it's a gift of free will. And we don't have to do it, but it's a gift. So
For
that's
sure.
just heard that really strong in my head and wanted to share it.
Yeah, I appreciate your sharing that. And I'm betting that's resonating with somebody watching this on video right now. And I'm new to meditation. I only started doing it about 4 years ago, and I resisted it because I had no interest in sitting in silence. And I still, to this day, have a hard time sitting in silence. I'm usually listening to oming in my earbuds, and I'm oming along with it because that's the form that I found that works for me. But I usually start it and I figure, well, I'll do it for 5 minutes. And then if I end up doing it for more than 5 minutes, that's great. And sometimes I'll do it for 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but sometimes it's just 5 minutes. And it's like, that's good too. Yeah. Speaking of chores, though, and work, there is another passage that I think is a really beautiful passage. This is from May 10th, 1987, a while back, and Quo said, "The difficulty in recognizing one's true work seems to stem from that distorted value which your peoples place upon that tool of power which your peoples call the money. It is our opinion that the only work which may be called the work," and that's in quotes, the work, "of any entity is that work done in consciousness during an incarnational period which has a net result as judged by the self after the incarnation of polarizing the entity more and more strongly towards service to the Creator and to others. Thus, life is the work and work is the life." I really wanted to include that passage in this particular section because, not surprising to anybody, so much of our hours in the day and our thought and our worries really involve what we call the work, which is whatever the fuck that stuff is that we have to do to get money to pay the bills. And they are really saying that they're sympathizing with that here, but I think they're reminding us that the only work which may be called the work of an entity is whatever you do that you realize after your incarnation helped you polarize more purely in service to Creator and to others. And super important to remember, I think. Super important. And like everything else, it's really just a matter of flipping a switch in your mind. If you reorient yourself to looking at everything you do that day in those terms, then it's possible that thing that you're doing to pay the bills, that if you can find ways to be kind to others and be more loving and help yourself think more about being in service to others, that's great. Otherwise, yeah, you might not be doing anything that you consider to be particular useful work in terms of other people's opinions, but anything that helps you open your heart more to unconditional love, anything that helps you polarize more purely in service to Creator or others, that's the stuff that's actually going to mean something after you leave this incarnation. Powerful stuff. Chloe, any thoughts on this? Anything to add?
Yeah, just I'm sort of perceiving this to mean that the work then is our inner work or whatever.
Could be.
So I'm in a position where I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know what I'm here to balance, like what I'm here to learn. I'm pretty sure I know that. So the work then in my perception of this would be whatever helps me develop that balance, or whatever helps me further myself on whatever I feel that I am here on the planet to learn or to do. Balance. I mean, I don't know. I think
I
there's a
can
lot to
totally
read
see that,
into.
and I would never want to give anybody the impression that my interpretation of these passages is the correct interpretation. I think there's lots of different ways to look at everything, and everything you said makes perfect sense to me.
Thank
I
you.
think the only thing I might add to that is just, as far as I can tell, the main purpose of third density is to make the choice. That's why they call it the density of choice. So realizing that the
Yes.
main purpose is to choose between the path of service to others or service to self. Everything else is really just doing everything you can to polarize further in that direction. And that probably
Yeah.
includes a lot of inner work, like you're talking about, and it may include outer stuff that you do also.
I've definitely feel that I've made the choice to go towards the service to others path. And I don't know, I don't think it's from the Law of One, but I have heard in another text that whatever problem or situation keeps appearing to you over and over in intensity in your life is likely something your soul wanted to work on while it was on the planet.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I'm referring to as well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I did want to remind our viewers, Quo has said many times that doing the inner work of healing your traumas, learning to forgive somebody who really hurt you, who really done you wrong, that is service to others. You are healing the planet when you heal that work. When you do the inner work of healing inside, you are in fact healing the planet, and you are being of service to others. So I really want to encourage all of our viewers to take that to heart and to run with that. Diane, anything to add?
You're the
Well, in
human
the
being.
mundane part of work, I would say go find something that you love. It doesn't matter what it is, make a little money at it. But the real work is everybody else. It's helping everyone else. It is amazing when you stop and listen to somebody's story and or smile. Just you see somebody walking down the street and it might look like they're having a nice day. Just smile genuinely and say, "Hey, how you doing?" And mean it. And if they need to stop and tell you how they're doing, listen. It's an amazing thing. And one of the things that I also think a great way to work is learn how to be grateful for a compliment. How many times do people get a compliment and go, "Oh, no, no, no." How about saying, "Wow, that makes me feel good." That gives it back. So there's so many ways to do this work.
Yeah, those are all such great examples that I had not thought of. And that's why we have panelists here, because you guys always think of things that I hadn't thought of. Thank you so much for sharing that for our viewers. Dr. J, anything to add?
Yeah, I really just I appreciated what Diane just said, because you never know what just complimenting somebody, what that can do for that day, and the impact of that. And it's so simple, right? It's so simple that you can be able to do it. So I just wanted to I really appreciated that, Diane. Thank you for sharing that. And then too, Jonathan, even when we're talking about meditation and the work, right? Like, for me, it was being able to, as I started to think more spiritually, and I wanted to figure out, like, how can I, like, do more of the conscious work while at work, because I'm physically having to go there all the time. I got meetings back to back all day. How can I actually start to be able to do that? And for me, it was helpful just to kind of realize that, like you said, Jonathan, like, a meditation doesn't have to be a set period of time. It doesn't have to be my routine in the morning. It doesn't have to be 5 minutes. Just to be able to just sit, take a breath, and breathe in, that could be as quick as it can with meditation. And one of the things how I was able to, after wanting that, I started being able to think how I could do that. And I started just ending my meetings 5 minutes early. That way I could just be able to sit and just not only just kind of balance from whatever that meeting was, because it could have been anything, but just to send positive energy to the meeting, to the people I was getting ready to meet with. And that would make my days go back not only so much quicker, but people would come to meetings nice to me. And I'm like, okay, this send the love thing actually really works. People want to work with me. They're being nice to me. So that was kind of one of the things that I felt what ended up being helpful for people with just those busy schedules. Even if there's a time where maybe you can just take a break or just anything, just to have a quick breath. It doesn't have to be tied to a particular time frame or format, but just that breath to just balance and just to recenter, that's always available to us.
So beautiful. That's like magic, how changing the inner world actually changes the outer world. Isn't that something? Yeah.
Works.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Yeah, really appreciate it. I was going to go ahead and move on to another topic. Did anybody have anything they wanted to add on this passage before we shift gears? Sounds good. I did want to note to our viewers that we are about 10 minutes over the 1 hour mark, and want to encourage our viewers not to feel like you have to watch all of this stuff in one sitting. You can always pause, put this in your watch later folder, and come back to it at another time when you're ready. And this is why we divide episodes into chapters, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. You can look and see what's in the chapters and then just skip to the chapters that are of interest to you. We always encourage folks to do that. Otherwise, let's talk a little bit about balancing energy centers. Before we look at passages, for those who are not familiar with chakras as they are known in Hindu traditions, or energy centers as they are known in the Law of One, it's understood in Hinduism and the Law of One that prana, as it's known in Hindu traditions, chi, as it's known in Chinese traditions, ki, as it's known in Japanese traditions, the Force, as it's known in Star Wars traditions, or intelligent energy, as it's known in Law of One traditions. That energy flows through from the universe and flows through every star and every planet, in this case, Earth, up through the root chakra, or red ray center, as it's known, which deals with survival, sexual reproduction, fundamental vitality. From there, that energy goes upward into the orange ray, or sacral chakra. This deals with personal identity, your relationships with other individual selves. From there, it goes up into your yellow ray center, or your solar plexus chakra. This deals with your group identity and your relationships with groups of other selves, whether it's family or co-workers or church members or political parties or whatever. From there, the energy goes up to your green ray, or heart chakra, which deals with universal unconditional love and is the springboard to higher chakras and what is called intelligent infinity. From there, the energy goes upward to your blue ray, or throat chakra, which deals with wisdom, light, honesty, clarity, and inspiration, and communication to others, the entirety of your beingness. From there, the energy goes up to your indigo ray, or third eye chakra. This is known as the gateway to intelligent infinity, the center of the adept, magical workings, and what is known in the Law of One as work in consciousness. Energy then goes up to your violet ray, or crown chakra. This is your vibratory essence, your sum, or energetic signature of yourself, reflecting your overall balance, and energy passes out through there. So our first passage comes from the Ra contact. This was session 43, question 8. And Ra said, "We have many times now spoken about the relative importance of balancing as opposed to the relative unimportance of maximal activation of each energy center. The reason is, as you have correctly surmised. Thusly, the entity is concerned, if it be upon the path of positive harvestability, with a regularizing of the various energies of experience. Thus, The most fragile entity may be more balanced than one with extreme energy and activity in service to others due to the fastidiousness with which the will is focused upon the use of experience in knowing the self. The densities beyond your own give the minimally balanced individual much time, space, and space-time with which to continue to refine these inner balances. There's a second passage I wanted to look at. This is also from the Raw Contact, session 54, question 15. And Ra said, while it is a primary priority to activate or unblock each energy center, it is also a primary priority at that point to begin to refine the balances between the energies so that each tone of the chord of total vibratory beingness resonates in clarity, tune, and harmony with each other energy. This balancing, tuning, and harmonizing of the self is the most central to the more advanced or adept mind-body-spirit complex. For those new to the law of one, mind-body-spirit complex is what they call people. That's how you know you're dealing with an extraterrestrial entity, because I don't know anybody on Earth who calls people mind, body, spirit complexes. But apparently they see this as a complex of mind and body and spirit, which from a law of one perspective makes sense. I think I'm going to go straight to the panelists on this one. Diane, any thoughts, reflections on anything here? Are you there, Diane? I am not. Oh, your mic is muted. Do you want to unmute your mic?
So sorry. There are many, many ways to approach this. Some people have regular practices. If one does not, it's go on YouTube. There's a lot of interesting, quick way, little chakra balancing things, and they're rather fun. Try different ones. There's different approaches. Myself, I find something that is valuable to me and really easy is to place my consciousness in my spine. And sometimes if I don't feel like doing too much, I will just envision like a sparkling light going up from my root chakra all the way up and then down. And I play it like a zither. And sometimes if I notice something, I can go, and if I really want to do the work, I will own them. And I will, and not a lot, it's not like I have to do a whole thing. It really is. I place my consciousness in my root chakra, and feel it going all the way up, and I'll do that like 3 times. And you can physically feel it. You can feel it going up and down your spine because that's where your consciousness is. And you can feel the balance restoring itself to you. And it's fun. So.
What a beautiful practice. I seem to remember reading about a channeling session where they encouraged people to do exactly what you were describing. Maybe not with the Om part, but the going up and down through the energy centers and kind of singing them and vibrating them. Is that something you came up with on your own, or is that something you read in a channeling transcript?
No, Kriya Yoga. I was bouncing around in India and the guru had said to do this. And I said, oh, wow, I like that. So I just kept it. It was something I took home with me and continued doing.
Nice. Yeah, that's another thing that I've really appreciated about the Law of One. There's a lot of Christian overtones and undertones in the channeling transcripts, largely due, I can assume, to Carla's and Jim's really devout Christian faith. There's also a lot that comes from Eastern mystical traditions, most notably chakras here, as well as reincarnation here, as well as karma. All 3 of those things are talked about a lot in the Law of One and are a big part of Law of One philosophy. So it's really cool that that Hindu practice that you learned is also something that's talked about in the Law of One. Dr. J, anything to add?
Yeah. Well, we're on the same vibratory rate. We vibing. Because that is exact same thing that I do in the mornings. I practice Kriya Yoga, so that's part of my routine. And even not only during like during the day, but even like now, even during meetings, if I could do a quick breath, go up and go down and go up and go down. I mean, that helps really, really just center. So I really did appreciate that. And then even Jonathan, it was because I remember seeing it in the Law of One Seattle Facebook group, and they were asked and it was actually Zachary who asked a question about Kriya Yoga and the use. And remember, and they were not only positive about that, but he asked about is this what Jesus did in this course. So they were very, very positive about the kind of that the use of Kriya Yoga. So I really appreciate Diane saying that, because it's what I do, and that's really, really kind of have helped me not only be able to understand the different chakras, but I remember one of our fellow Wild One seekers is like, you should get to the point to where you can feel your chakras and you can feel them like your fingers. And I was like, that's a really interesting concept. But they were able to do that kind of by way of Kriya Yoga. So I really appreciated that. And the second thing about just balance, and one of the people in our Heartland Chicago Law of One group ended up adding that, and I say this now before each meditation, is part of a prayer where it says, I ask that my spirit to move energy to my weakest energy center so that my energy body may be in balance. And I've been saying that kind of consistently every morning, along with some other things, and I found that it has helped, but it's helped me realize and keep in my mind the importance of balance rather than trying to activate these high centers, but trying to continue to stay balanced.
Nice. Yeah, so beautiful. Appreciate your sharing that. Kriya Yoga is not something I'm particularly familiar with, so I appreciate learning about it. I did do a little bit of yoga, and I got good enough to do the tree pose that you see me doing in the title graphic for this episode, but that's about as far into yoga as I've gotten. Chloe, anything to add?
Yeah, well, first I'd just like to recommend a book really fast. So in the book, The Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda, he has at least one chapter that goes into detail about Kriya Yoga and how to implement it into your spiritual journey. So yeah, just wanted to name drop that real quick. And
I've heard of it, and I've heard good things about it, so appreciate the
it's a
plug.
really good book. I found, so I read The Law of One, and then I read The Autobiography of a Yogi, and I would say there's an incredible amount of overlap in that information, except he gives you that perspective from his own experience versus The Law of One gives you that perspective through Ra giving us information.
Right.
So it's just kind of, they like really go hand in hand. It's cool.
Beautiful
Uh,
recommendation. Thank you.
so
Was there
the main
anything
thing
else you
I
wanted
wanted to
to add?
say, yeah, just about this passage, the idea that, where does it say that? That there will be much time, space, and space time to continue refining the inner balances in other densities. And just outside of this, because really, third density, from what I remember, should really just be a blink of an eye in terms of how much time you're really going to be spending in the earlier and the later densities. So it makes sense, it'd be really hard to achieve a perfect energetic balance in one lifetime, several lifetimes, hundreds even. Like, it's really something I can see why it would be easier to do those little refining balances outside of this illusion. Whereas here we're really learning a lot of big stuff really fast. But yeah, the little minute details, I like the idea that I don't feel as stressed to figure it all out in this lifetime, I should say.
I think that's how I feel about it too. I appreciate your phrasing it that way, for sure. I think perhaps there are many in the metaphysical community who spend a lot of time thinking about the third eye chakra because that's where all the cool stuff seems to happen.
Mhm.
And while there are certainly benefits to be gained from that, our friends in the Confederation have said many times, have to be really careful about trying to do work in the upper level chakras without having doing all the inner work and the cleanup work and the blockages that you might have in the lower chakras, involving your relationships with other individuals, involving your relationships with other groups. So I agree with
Yeah,
what you're saying. That balance is definitely, to me, more important than trying to do
exactly.
cool
We have
stuff.
to balance. We don't have to be perfect.
No. Which brings us to our next passage. Anybody have anything they wanted to add on this before we look at another passage on balancing energy centers? Nice. This kind of builds on what Chloe was just saying. And this was from December 19th, 2009. Quo said, "Your balance will not be like anyone else's balance. For a true spiritual seeker, balance is fundamentally that estate which is achieved when each of the chakras of your energy body lies open, so that each chakra may accept and allow through the chakra the full power of the love and the light of the one infinite creator, which streams infinitely and eternally from the Logos. That Logos has spoken its love, its nature, and its will in creating each of you and the environment in which you experience life. That Logos will have given you a fully functional, a fully capable and competent body of soul and flesh in which to pursue your seeking, and an energy body in order to give you the best environment in which to learn about yourself and to learn about your own will, and finally to learn about the right use of will, balanced when the energy body is open and allowing the energy of the one to flow through it and into the opened and fearless heart. We cannot tell you what will decrease distortion within each of your chakras. We cannot tell you the appropriate attitude towards sexuality, toward relationship, towards marriage, towards anything. We can only tell you that you have every right and every ability to investigate for yourself where your balances lie in red ray, and orange ray, and yellow ray. These first three chakras are tremendously important in creating a balance within you that allows you to know your own heart. So beautiful here. I really love that very first part about how your balance will not be anyone else's balance, and how you have every right and every ability to figure out and investigate for yourself where that balance is and how to find it. Again, another thing that I really appreciate about the Law of One, they never dictate to anybody what they should or should not do. They always try to allow each person to feel empowered to make their own choices, their own decisions, and take charge of their own learning. Super beautiful. Dr. J, anything to add?
Yeah, just something really short. Because like you said, it's so beautiful. I don't know how much I could add. But just as you shared on the last slide, the as you went through the different chakras, the energy centers, and how they align with. Not that you necessarily have to find it. Okay, but just even as I looked at that. That really, for me, when I first learned about the chakra system, it really became a framework in which I was able to then consciously be able to understand where am I experiencing blockages. So how I even kind of use this to even to this day, if I'm experiencing certain things or I'm experiencing situations, I look to then see, okay, where does that situation coincide? Is this a more red ray energy? Is this more orange ray? Is it more yellow ray? And where's the blockage at, and how can I allow more love and light to get through? So being able to match situations and catalytic experiences with my life in regards to the framework of the chakra energy center has really provided me a framework to then kind of try to keep myself as balanced as much as possible.
For sure. Well said. Yeah, and I would think these days of mid-February year 2025, there are a lot of people who have been laid off, a lot of people who have had funding cut for their positions, and that's red ray survival issues right there, just trying to figure out if you're going to be able to pay the bills and put food on the table. And that fear and those constraints, man, that automatically blocks flow anywhere above and beyond that. So my heart goes out to anyone who is experiencing anything like that right now, and hope that you will pray and ask for help in getting through this very, very difficult time, since the help is there. And I don't think anything happens that wasn't, nothing catastrophic happens to anyone that wasn't on some level planned pre-incarnatively. I'm sure that seems really hard to believe and accept, and easy for someone to say who's in a comfortable position. But if my understanding of the law of one is correct, then just want to put that out there. Chloe, anything to add?
Yeah, a little bit to build on what you just said. You know, as someone who's been in a lot of bad situations, hopeless situations, even I think it's something that was planned in before I incarnated to learn from it. And I've learned so much. So I hope anyone who has trouble believing it could be a choice to go through that, that you just try to dig deeper and ask yourself, what did I learn? What can I learn? Um, yeah. And, you know, I feel like Jonathan, there's not much I can add, in my opinion, to this, because it's just so beautiful. Like, your balance will not be like anyone else's balance. You don't have to be like anyone else. You just have to be you. And that's like already so powerful.
Which really kind of reinforces what you were saying earlier about how you might not be able to find a meditation practice. You're really just trying to be yourself. It's like, that is the work. That is the meditation practice. That is what you are here to do. So it's a beautiful affirmation,
Absolutely.
I would hope. Diane, anything to add?
The balancing of those first three chakras, yes, that is so, so vitally important. I've done a lot of work with people who have PTSD. And interestingly enough, I kind of now notice it if I happen to, be putting my hands, checking out chakras, the red ray chakra will be cold, as if it is a stone, a cold stone. It's cold to my hand. And then I've come to say, PTSD, this is what we're dealing with. And just working right there with the person, having them work on themselves. Sometimes it's just a conversation. Place your energy down at the bottom of your spine. Think of, this just came to me. A beautiful thing that somebody can do when they're having things that trigger them physically is when they're not having that, to give it a name, like, oh, a cold rock, or I feel, it's just this blob of hot, hey, whatever it is. And now, okay, that's it. Now you gave it a name. Now, what's the opposite? Think of something opposite. Oh, well, maybe a nice warm breeze. Okay, that's your opposite. Now what I want you to do is be quiet and visualize the two interacting with each other until that beautiful warm breeze takes over. How does that feel? Oh, and invariably they'll feel that. And that's something that can be taken with you to when you feel yourself having some kind of a block. That's a very easy thing to work with. But yeah, it is important to work with those three rays, because you're not going to, those three chakras, because the rest isn't going to flow. You want that energy to be able to flow up.
For sure. Yeah, appreciate that. Reminds me, Chloe, there was something I was going to ask you about in terms of your balance not being like anyone else's and finding those balances in the lower chakras and such. I believe you told us before that you identify as non-binary and as queer. And I was wondering if you have any thoughts to share in terms of how you yourself have been able to balance, say, male and female, masculine, feminine energies in your own spiritual, physical walk.
Right. Well, I would say everyone needs to balance their masculine and feminine energies, even if you identify as like cisgender or you identify as trans, but you're female. No matter what the case, it's like we all have that, right? We all have the archetype of the mother and the father within us. And
Sure.
I don't know, there's a lot to be gained from learning to balance it. Like in terms of toxic masculinity, I feel a lot of those people who embrace that could probably use a little more feminine energy and to give to themselves to balance out that very intense masculine energy. It's not inherently wrong to have a higher amount of masculine energy. There is a
For
point
sure.
where it starts hurting others, where suck it up, son, don't cry, like only girls cry, or telling your daughter that she shouldn't be going outside and rough and tumbling because she should be inside, cleaning or learning housemaking skills.
For sure.
Yeah, for me,
Yeah, and I
the main way.
appreciate your noting at the very beginning that, I mean, everyone has masculine and feminine energies. So did want to for sure note that. Yes, acknowledge and agree that for sure. I think I was just wondering, maybe perhaps if you wouldn't mind sharing, like in your early years, in your, say, childhood, adolescent years, did you have difficulties coming to terms with who you were in terms of being non-binary? Is it something that you still are kind of struggling, grappling with? And I'm asking this on behalf of viewers who might have similar experiences or be going through similar struggles.
Yeah, I would say it's always been a journey figuring out like what is this that I feel? Why, how come it's harder for me to relate to gender the way other people do, for example, and just going on this journey of expressing myself more feminine, expressing more masculine, back to feminine, back to masculine, just and then doing that emotionally as well, not just like how I look, like sometimes going back between this aggressive, more confrontational, like get it done type masculine energy and then this gentle, like I want to get taken care of, I want to take care of others, I want just some like freaking peace. But I it's just been difficult, I think, just having communities on the internet of people who feel similarly and having friends who feel similarly has helped me a lot. Community is so important when you feel alone, which probably makes sense. Um, I would say recently I've been putting a lot more energy into okay, how do I embrace both? How do I really find this balance I've been looking for? Um, so the other day I was really a quick example. Other day I was really upset and I was in nature. I was sitting with my tree and I like felt the tears coming and I was like, okay, I'm gonna cry it out real quick. I'm alone. I'm with my tree. It's okay. I can let it out. So I did, and then I like kind of smiled after I kind of felt like the beauty of nature and just comforted and wiped my tears and picked myself up. And I'm like, okay, you're strong and you can stand tall now and let's keep going and just love creation and love the people in your life. And yeah, I think trying to embody the archetype of the masculine, feminine, the mother and the father, kind of being your own parent when you don't have that comforting figure around. You know what I mean? So
Indeed.
that's been my exploration with the energies, is just seeing it as something inherently helpful to have both of them.
For sure. Yeah, I really appreciate your sharing that. And yeah, sitting under a tree is definitely good for anyone who's going through any types of difficulty. And I really want to encourage all of our viewers who might identify as part of the LGBTQ community. I would hope you feel at home and welcome in any Law of One study group that you choose to associate with. But if for some reason you're not feeling it in other groups, make sure you contact us at the Seattle Law of One group, because we love you and respect you and value you for who you are, and always appreciate your being with us, blending your vibrations with us. Let's see if we are okay to, have we heard from everybody? I've lost track. I think so. Did anybody else have anything to add before we move on to, I think, our last set of passages? Sounds good. Before we do that, I think I wanted to put in another shameless plug for the Seattle Law of One podcast, because we did have a podcast episode on chakras and energy centers. It was episode 14. And yes, we went much more in depth into everything that we've talked about here and then some. So if you're interested in learning more about that, check it out. Otherwise, let's talk a little bit about balancing love and wisdom. This is also going to be a somewhat longer passage with 2 slides. On January 26th, 2022, Quo said, "We may present to this entity the example of a domicile, what you in your illusion may call a house, home, structure in which an entity may live. Take, for instance, the physical structure of the domicile itself, the walls, the bricks, the steel beams, the glass, the roof. Whatever construction is employed to create the structure, consider that your wisdom. Now look within the home, and you see the items that create the environment which is comfortable or inhabitable. Take, for instance, the furniture, the decorations, the lighting, the appliances. Envision those items as love. The balance between the two is inherently important, for without the structure surrounding those interior items that provide warmth and comfort, there's no protection. The entity is vulnerable. However, if there's only structure and no interior items for warmth and comfort, the entity finds themselves cold and uninspired and uncomfortable. We provide that example to show you that the relationship between wisdom and love is inherently connected in terms of efficient use or efficient expression of either. For wisdom to be employed in a way that is pure and strong, there is an inherent relationship to the intention behind it. Be the intention love, then the purity, if you will, the strength, the effectiveness of the wisdom is magnified and rebounds outward. The efficiency of the energetic signature of love is too magnified when at its intention, its core is the exercise of wisdom, then that love rebounds outward effectively. Haven't said it in at least an hour, so I'm going to say it again. This all came through the process of channeling. The person who was saying these words really didn't know what it was going to look like when they came out. They were really just kind of taking a leap of faith and saying the words that came to them in meditation as they were trying to make what they believed was telepathic contact with an extraterrestrial entity. I'm only saying this because this is such a beautiful metaphor. I don't know if someone else has used this metaphor before, but I've been studying philosophy for 40 years and religions, and I don't remember anybody using this metaphor comparing love and wisdom this way. And what a beautiful example. I really don't have anything much more to add to it. I really just wanted to share it. Chloe, any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Yeah, I think it's a great little metaphor for people to kind of understand better why you need both. I've definitely seen what it looks like for someone to only be about the love or someone to only be about the wisdom. And I know that's kind of also a part of the choice, service to self, service to others, but no matter what you choose, you do have to find some balance and understand that they need each other. Like there is no separation truly of love and wisdom. They're all the same thing.
Indeed. All is one, and that one thing is love. Yeah, and I appreciate you reminding me. I think anyone who's watching this on video can probably think of people they know who seem a little bit heavily balanced on the love, could probably use a little bit more wisdom, or people who seem really heavy on the wisdom could probably use a little bit more love. And Quo has said many times that pretty much everyone who's incarnated on Earth at this time came here largely to learn how to refine that balance between love and wisdom. Certainly the wanderers who came here from higher densities to help out here. Diane, anything to add?
I am very in tune with my environment. It's necessary to me that everywhere I look in my home, I am observing something that triggers some beauty in my heart. And I will move things because I'm not looking at something that is loving me back. So that's a thing. And that's me. I'm aware that that's not everybody else. And I am also aware that some buildings I go into don't feel good. They don't feel right. The energy that comes back at me is sometimes so much that I will leave the building. But I will also say this, it fascinates me to go into other people's homes because you get an energy and you get an energy from the furniture and from the way that they have decorated. And it's always wonderful because it gives you another perspective, like the outer perspective of what's going on inside the person. So it is interesting. I tend to also require earth, wind, air, and fire in almost every room I have. Pretty much, I can't think of a room I don't have that somehow I don't have earth, air, and fire on purpose.
Yeah, that's beautiful to do that intentionally. Yeah, for sure. It's a beautiful thing. Dr. J, anything to add?
Yeah, just like you said, like these examples are just so good. And even when they're just really good. So I'll say the only kind of addition I had when I thought about this, okay, like myself being this domicile, this house, where's my house spiritually located, or where is it consciously located? Is it located in a conscious spiritual community? Is it? And I've kind of just thought about that. That's why I love these examples, because they really give you these beautiful visualizations to be able to kind of just think through it. And when I thought about it, I'm thinking about it like, yes, like I'm fortunately am in some spiritual communities. I am in some other areas to where I'm able to grow in other areas and segments in my life, and that has to do with the people, the beings, the communities that are around you. So as I thought about this, I thought about not only the connection between the love and wisdom, but where I'm located to then help continuously grow my love and wisdom, that I'm around the right people, the right communities, the right organizations, and so forth.
Hadn't thought of it that way. Really appreciate your adding that to the mix, to the conversation. And yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that I wanted to do these podcasts. For folks who are new to the Law of One, then hopefully you're getting a lot of good stuff that you've never seen before. But also for folks who are quite familiar with the Law of One and the raw contact, I'm hoping that maybe you're seeing some passages from Quo that you haven't seen before, or you're hearing things from our panelists that you hadn't really thought of in terms of looking those passages. So hope that is true. Hope that is helpful to people. I think we have one more passage to look at on this subject. Did anybody have anything they wanted to say before we look at one last passage? Sounds good. This was from August 9th, 2002. Quo said, one concept that is involved in effecting the purpose of third density is an increased accuracy in the perception of that dynamic known to your people as polarity. What is positive? What is negative? What is service to others? What is service to self? How does this creature that you experience as yourself respond to perceived light and perceived darkness, to perceived positivity and perceived negativity? Very often, those entities which wandered into this planetary sphere from elsewhere are those who are working very hard in sixth density upon the precise balance between love and wisdom. This means that chances to experience polarity and respond to it are precious, because only by gathering the harvest of catalyst and allowing the winnowing of that catalyst by the processes of conscious and unconscious portions of the self can one begin to redefine and more accurately balance the forces of love and wisdom within the self. For those who are new to the law of one, wanderers is a term that's used to describe entities that actually incarnated here from another planet, and rather than rising up the normal way on this planet through first, second, third density and trying to graduate to fourth density, they've already been to fourth, fifth, or sixth density, and they voluntarily took the leap of faith to come down to third density to help this planet in its processes and help other souls in their processes of spiritual evolution. And what they're saying here is that they also came here not just to be of service to others, they actually came here to be of service to selves, and that they're all trying to refine their balances between energies of love and wisdom, which are a lot harder to do at sixth density when you know the answers to every question already. Coming down to third density is like forgetting everything. You go behind the veil of forgetting, and now you have to try to make all these ethical choices between what seems to be service to others and what seems to be service to self, but without knowing all the answers. That's kind of the test and the challenge. And it's a beautiful way of looking at it that helps maybe make sense about all the other horse shit we have to deal with. This is incarnation in the meantime. Diane, any thoughts on anything here?
I love the word catalyst. It changed my life. When things happen that might throw me off balance, I no longer will go, what happened to me? What am I gonna do? I now can go, oh, that's catalyst. Now, that's very interesting. Apparently, if that catalyst is in front of me, then I was not exactly following the way that might be best. And I have now the opportunity to course correct. I love the word catalyst. I don't take things personally anymore. That's my thing. Stay in balance by observing catalyst and just tweaking it,
Nice.
tweaking yourself.
And we are all guaranteed to get an abundance of catalyst in the years to come, for sure.
Tweak away.
Yeah, well, it's a great attitude to have. Absolutely. I hope our viewers enjoy and are inspired by that. Dr. J, anything to add?
Yeah. Again, like even as Diane said, like this gives you an opportunity to like course correct. Because even when I'm thinking about like the balance of wisdom and love, and how I've either acted or displayed these in relationships that I've had, and even personal situations. I'm even thinking about one with a family member who I was just really getting ready to cut off on behalf of not necessarily balancing the two, giving more and more and more and more. But then I was kind of able to get to a point of being able to just recognize that part of is it is okay to say no, and that was something that I had to be able to understand from a family perspective, especially from how I grew up. And you kind of just you give a lot of stuff, you give, but there is maybe some wisdom to be able to say no, especially if that no provides you a sense of peace and a sense of calmness and doesn't maybe impact your family negatively. So it's been this I would say catalyst experiences to where I was able to say in the past there were certain things with this relationship that I just did not maybe do as best as I could. So this gives me an opportunity to then course correct and then balance the two this time around.
Nice. Yeah, appreciate your sharing that. Absolutely. Chloe, anything to add?
The line that says, how does this creature that you experience as yourself respond to perceived light and perceived darkness? Made me, I just love that they actually do have the separation in mind, body, spirit complex, because it does allow you to think a little more intricately about your physical body being here and not really being the same thing as your mind or spirit. Because, you know, the way the creature that I perceive as myself, I see that as referring to our physical body. Well, it's really all of it, but I'm going to focus on the physical body. And just like based on how you grew up and what happened to you as you've experienced life, you're going to have some automatic, uncontrollable reactions that, you know, maybe for some reason something happened to you as a kid. And so now when good things happen to you, you don't trust it. Or bad things happen to you and you're like, oh, right, I deserve this. So this is normal, right? And it's like, it's important to analyze what your body, like how it's reacting to the catalyst too. Like how much of this is I'm getting anxiety because a past traumatic event's been triggered by the catalyst, or, you know, whatever it may be. There's a lot to dive into in your own reactions to what happens to you and how your body's reacting, and how is that different from how your mind is reacting, and how is that different from how your spirit feels about it, if you can even differentiate, which might be a little harder with the mind and spirit, but I think it's a little easier to differentiate the physical sensations and how that's different.
For sure. Yeah, I like that part where they're saying this means, this is in the second paragraph, second sentence, I think. This means that chances to experience polarity and respond to it are precious because it is by gathering the harvest of catalyst and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, it reminds me, there are passages where I think Ra said specifically, most wanderers on Earth at this time did in fact come from sixth density as opposed to fifth density or fourth density. And that in fact, oftentimes a social memory complex from sixth density, like Ra's, for example, will send constituent members back specifically to provide service to others and to help refine those balances in order for the social memory complex as a whole to graduate to seventh density. So it is entirely possible that you, random person who are watching this on video, that if you didn't know this already, it is entirely possible that you are a wanderer from sixth density and that you did actually come from the complex known as Ra, and that you came here partly to be in service to others and partly to learn how to balance energies of love and wisdom yourself. And in doing that, you're going to be of great benefit to that social memory complex when you go back. So thank you in advance for your service to others and for your service to the social memory complex. I believe that was the last passage to look at, and I think I'm ready to start wrapping things up. Did anybody have anything they wanted to add before we move on from this passage and tie a bow on this?
No,
Sounds good.
I'm good.
Yeah. So where do we go from here? This is the part of the episode where we try to look at some takeaway lessons, maybe from the almost 2 hours of discussion we've had so far. I would say perhaps some good takeaway lessons to remember would be one, yeah, finding balance often involves pulling back so that you can see the larger perspective. Remember the story about looking at the elephant up close and then pulling back and looking at it from farther and farther away. Doesn't take away from the truth of the perspective when you're looking at it up close. It just helps sometimes to dolly the camera back, as Carla would say, and to see it from a wider perspective. Second of all, yes, make time to meditate. And anything can be a meditation. It doesn't have to be sitting there oming or anything like that. Anything can be a meditative practice, but finding a way to do it at a regular time or finding a way to make it part of whatever else you're doing, highly recommended. And remember, the real work is whatever polarizes you more purely in service to others, not whatever that stuff is that you're doing to pay the bills. Fourth, balance of energy centers is more important than the strength or power of anyone. They use the word tone poem. I think Ross said you are more a tone poem than a machine. And that involves what our panelists said about running up and down your energy centers like a musical instrument and just trying to find a good, beautiful, harmonious balance of everything. And lastly, yeah, however it works for you, put some thought and intent into finding ways to balance those energies of love and wisdom, because it is probably one of the main things that you came here to do. Dr. J, any takeaway lessons of your own you want to add, or any closing thoughts you want to share before we have a pop quiz?
No, not anything that I have not already shared. So as always, I just appreciate you pulling this wonderful list of readings and teachings and insights together.
You bet. Appreciate your being part of it. Chloe, anything you want to add here?
Not particularly. Thank you. This has been really fun so far.
It's been wonderful having you on, and we definitely need to do it again sooner. Diane?
Oh, definitely.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I think I started before we even began saying you gave me a lot of homework. I really started looking at myself and saying, well, how do I balance things? And so I'm understanding me better by you asking these things. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I got to say, the same thing works for me in the process of putting all of these episodes together and selecting passages and reading passages. It's definitely homework for me too, and I've enjoyed it. I feel like I've learned at least a little bit more in the process, so appreciate it. So yes, it is time for pop quiz. Pop quizzes, of course, are something that we like to do as a fun way to end our conversations and to look at good examples of the law of one in pop culture. Since today's focus was on balance, today we're actually going to look at two examples of third density entities in pop culture who have demonstrated seemingly superhuman abilities and mastery of balance. The first example is a woman who has demonstrated almost superhuman abilities to balance not just herself in the sport of gymnastics, but in spiritual balance and overcoming almost superhuman challenges. She has won 11 Olympic gold medals and 30 world championship medals, making her one of the most decorated gymnasts in history, if not the most. She is widely regarded as one of the greatest gymnasts of all time and one of the greatest Olympians of all time. Any guesses who I'm talking about, panel?
Simone?
Any names come to mind?
Simone?
You are correct. Simone Biles, indeed.
Wow. Look at that.
I knew a little bit about her before writing this pop quiz, but I learned a bit more about her in the process. And like I said, she's not just a great physical athlete. She is an amazing spiritual athlete in the types of challenges she has overcome, as you shall find out. But for your first question, Simone Biles has how many gymnastics moves named after her? Is it A, 3, 4, or 5? Panelists, just go ahead and shout out your answers.
3.
B.
B.
Nice. Good guesses, and the correct answer is in fact C, 5. Well done, random person watching on video who got that correct. Yeah, 5 gymnastics moves named after her, meaning they're so difficult, nobody else has been able to do it before her, and so they're named after her. So 2 moves on the vault, 1 move on the balance beam, and 2 moves on the floor exercise, which is, again, just a huge testament to the will power that has enabled her to achieve that level of mastery. Your next question, you may or may not know this, but at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, Simone had to withdraw from competition because of a condition known as what? Was it A, the twisties, B, the yips, or C, the morbs?
Twisty.
A. Yeah, twisties.
Nice. Dr. Jade?
I'm gonna go with my fellow seekers.
Nice. Well done, like a social memory complex in the works. Yeah, the morbs is actually an old Victorian English term for depression. The yips is a sports term. I believe it refers to when an athlete is just unable to do one of the most basic moves that should be able to do for whatever reason. And the twisties is related to something that happened specifically to Simone Biles. And for this, I'm going to share a brief video clip.
Simone Biles has pulled out of the team in all-around competitions here in Tokyo, saying that she has a case of the twisties. For the non-gymnastics people, here's a look at what that means. Gymnasts have a sense of air awareness. When they are doing a skill, they have a feeling of their body, their brain kind of knows how they're going to land it. When they get the twisties, that gets disconnected. There's a short circuit between what their brain is experiencing and the muscle memory and what their bodies are doing. That's bad for a couple reasons. One, it'll just steal your confidence. Gymnasts at this level are doing the hardest gymnastics that we see, and to not be able to do that is very disorienting. Two, it's actually really dangerous. You know, when they do vault, when they do floor, they're 8-10 feet in the air. So to lose your awareness and fall, you risk serious injury. So how can you fix them? What can you do? The main thing is soft surfaces. Here in Tokyo at the competition venue, there's only the hard apparatus that they would use during the competition, but it seems that Simone has found a gym locally where she can try to do her skills into foam pits or onto soft mats to address them. On her Instagram, Simone said that this normally only happens to her on floor and vault. And usually, and since she came to Tokyo, this has been a problem for her on all 4 apparatuses. She said on her Insta story that usually it takes 2 weeks for this to go away, and that's longer than the competition schedule here in Tokyo.
Thank you, US Today, for that clip, indeed. But yeah, just the sheer amount of pressure, psychological, emotional pressure that she was facing to perform at that level. And she somehow managed to come back 4 years later at the Paris Olympics and still won gold medals, and still to overcome that pressure is just amazing. And if that wasn't enough, there was more to it as well.
Simone Biles has...
In case you didn't know this, yes, Simone Biles was one of over 500 gymnasts who were sexually abused by gymnastics trainer Larry Nassar. And she was one of many who testified before Congress as to not just the horrors that she and other young girls had to face, but as well as how she was betrayed by the U.S. Gymnastics Commission for allowing this to go on for decades, and the FBI investigators, I think, who just basically ignore their pleas for help and allow this guy to continue abusing 500 young girls. That is shocking. I mean, if sexual abuse was an Olympic sport, man, that dude is like Olympian. That is just fucking insanely crazy. So again, not to make light of it, I'm just saying this is also what she had to overcome in order to compete in the 2024 Olympics, which again, huge spiritual athlete. I believe Catholic, so I believe she has made no secret that, yes, her religious faith was also something that helped her get through all that. So our second example of balance is a Russian couple who I'm guessing no one here and no one watching on this video has ever heard of. They are Ivan Birkus and Angela Nicolau, also known as Skywalkers. Panelists, have any of you heard of these people? There is a Netflix movie about them called Skywalkers, A Love Story. That's where this picture was taken from. Ivan and Angela apparently met and fell in love through the art of rooftopping, which is basically going up to really, really insanely high places that require superhuman balancing skills without fear. They do this without lifelines. If they fall from where they're at, they die. That's pretty much it. But they've made many YouTube videos documenting their work as well. It's just incredible performance art. And the videos themselves are beautiful and inspiring. So we're actually going to watch one of them after your first question. So your first question is, In what city was the video Our Elevation recorded? Was it A, Hong Kong, B, Moscow, or C, New York City? What do you think?
Hong Kong.
I'll do Hong Kong.
I'm gonna go with Hong Kong too.
You guys are crushing it. Nice. Yes, indeed. The correct answer is Hong Kong. That is where that picture was taken from. The video is about a little bit longer than I want to share here, so I'm going to start it like maybe in the last minute or two so that you can see. But this is on YouTube, and anybody can just go to YouTube and look up Skywalkers, and you'll see quite a few of the videos that they produced. But they're beautiful works of art, beautiful music, and the guy apparently is operating a drone camera. So all of the video photography that you're seeing here is him actually doing this on a drone camera. Check this out. I'm going to skip ahead a bit, and I cannot see where I'm at, so I'm going blind here. This looks about right. Once again, they do actually have a video documentary about this on Netflix. So free advertising for Netflix. You're welcome. And I apologize to our viewers who are listening to this. These podcasts are actually meant to be watched on video. So there's lots of visuals and all the slides and all the stuff that we look at. So I apologize for those of you who didn't see it. But I don't know, watch this on YouTube and check it out and you can see for yourself. Otherwise, yeah, really, really something. As a person with fear of heights,
I think it looks terrifying. Yeah.
I would shit myself if I was anywhere halfway up to where they went.
I was gonna say, I'm like, some people say I have an unhealthy fear of heights. I think that's an unhealthy non-fear of heights.
Yeah.
They look like they're having fun, and it's quite beautiful though. So I'll give them that.
From a law of one perspective, can you imagine, like, how do you think these guys arranged pre-incarnatively to do this? Because this is not something that happens just accidentally. This must be something that they plan to do. And yeah, to be so fearless.
I would think so.
Yeah, amazing. Well, panelists, it has been a joy and a privilege again to hang out with you all. Wanted to thank you all for being here. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all the friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. For everyone watching this on YouTube in the near future or in the very distant future, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We are sending you our love and we are receiving you. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, namaste.